Chapter 59:17. Xiren, when did you come over? Bachin had a warm smile on his face. Since he was a child, he had always trained with Xiren. He was not used to not seeing Xiren for a while. Ying and I came out after getting the inheritance. We wanted to find you as soon as possible. Fortunately, the place where we came out was not far from here. Later, we noticed that the light here was unusual, so we came over together. After arriving here, we saw Xiaofeng and the others here. We also knew that you were safe and sound, so we were completely relieved. Xiren's dark and bright eyes were also full of complicated emotions, but as a man, he would not show it all like Shengguan Yingying. But he remembered all this in his heart. These days, although he was trying to improve himself, he was always thinking about Bachin and Lin Yiqian. When he thought about whether the two were still alive, his mood was extremely uncomfortable. Now that he saw Bachin and others were safe and sound, his mood was unprecedentedly comfortable. Hearing this, Bachin also understood. Don't worry, how can anything happen to us? Bachin, you said that the door of the darkness statue was opened. What is inside? Xiaofeng was obviously more interested in this. The situation on both sides is so similar. Will the method to open it be the same? There is a hall inside. We call it the Darkness Divinity Hall. The walls are full of words that I can't understand, but I can vaguely judge that it should be related to cultivation. Bachin briefly described the situation over there. Everyone was on the same side, so there was naturally no taboo. As for the method to open it, Bachin raised his eyebrows. The method to open it is a bit strange. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly chuckled. There is no need to find any way to open the door at all. Bachin opened it directly with a push. As soon as these words came out, Xiaofeng and others were taken aback. They opened their mouths wide, full of disbelief. Really? Lin Yi couldn't believe it. How can it be opened with a push? Why would I lie to you? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Everyone's reaction was the same as Huang Futing and the others. Even she found the situation amusing. All of you have already entered the dark shrine. How enviable. We have been here for so long, but no one has been able to open the door. We are really helpless. Shengguan Yingying sighed. She didn't need to think to know that there was something extraordinary in this hall. It was a pity that no one could enter. It was like a delicacy was right in front of them, but they could only stare at it from a step away. When Xiao Sou and the others heard Shengguan Yingying's sigh, their expressions changed. Previously, when Bachin and Yi Zichin had been going to the Statue of Darkness for so long, they only thought that they were cultivating there. In fact, other than the difference in attributes, the effects of cultivating on both sides should be the same. However, if Bachin and Yi Zichin really entered the Darkness Divinity Hall, then the situation would be different. You said that they entered the Darkness Divinity Hall? Xiao Sou raised her voice. Don't joke around. This is impossible. Chapter 59:18. During this period of time, they had racked their brains, but failed to come up with a solution. Now they were told that Bachin and Lin Mingya had already entered. How could they accept this? Shengguan Yingying glanced at Xiao Sou coldly and said, You can't get in, so you think that Hongzhuang can't get in either. Think about it. There are many things that Hongzhuang can do that you can't. The sharp voice bluntly exposed Xiao Seiwu's face, causing the latter's face to turn gloomy. However, she couldn't refute her words. After all, she had been at a disadvantage so many times now. If she retorted indignantly, she was almost certain that Shengguan Yingying would have more to say to her. She didn't want to embarrass herself in front of Qing Devil again. At this moment, Qing Devil's voice sounded. It's fine if Bachin entered the Darkness Shrine, but it's impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang to enter at all. Qing Devil's dark and deep eyes were full of certainty and confidence, while his lips curled into a mocking sneer. Even if you want to deceive us, you should at least find a reasonable excuse. The Darkness Shrine won't allow any cultivator who doesn't have the darkness attribute to enter at all. He knew it too well. He came here in the first place because he wanted to enter the Brilliance Shrine. The Brilliance Shrine was different from the Darkness Shrine. The Brilliance Shrine could allow all cultivators who didn't have the darkness attribute to enter, while the Darkness Shrine only allowed cultivators with the darkness attribute to enter. Bailey Hongzhuang was the Holy Maiden of Light, and her attribute was undoubtedly light. It was impossible for other attributes, let alone the light attribute. It was simply a fool's dream. You haven't been there, so how do you know all this? Di Baichen looked at Jun Lingxuan with a faint smile in his eyes, and his slightly slanted eyebrows were thought-provoking. Xiao Shou immediately clenched her hands into fists, and she couldn't help but feel a little worried. Ling Sun! This time, she could not allow her identity as the Qing Devil to be exposed. Qing Devil raised his right hand slightly to stop Xiao Shou. When I took back the control, I also got Qing Devil's memory. He was originally from the ancient battlefield, so it's not strange that he knows more about this place than we do. That's right. Xiao Shou nodded and immediately breathed a sigh of relief. She was really worried that Qing Devil would ignore everything in a fit of anger. Although this statement was a little strange, it was very possible if one thought about it carefully. I see. Di Baichen dragged out his tone with a hint of mockery. In that case, you were the one who understood this place the most at that time. Since that's the case, don't be stingy and tell everyone about it. Xu Yingming also said, Jun Lingxuan, we don't understand the situation here. Since you know, then tell us. Yes, then we can think of a solution together. For a moment, many forces present agreed. They really had too many questions about the situation in the ancient battlefield. Qing Devil glanced at Di Baichen's face coldly. This guy really annoyed him. Now that he had not recovered his strength, he would not take the initiative to find trouble with him. After he recovered his strength, he would definitely get rid of these annoying guys quickly. Chapter 59-19. Every time the Statue of Light appears, it will be of great help to the improvement of the cultivator's strength. Not only that, but there are also some restrictions. The Statue of Light allows cultivators of any attribute other than darkness to cultivate, and the Statue of Darkness only accepts cultivators of the darkness attribute. That's why I'm sure that Bailey Hongzhuang has never entered the Darkness Palace. Qing Devil made a solemn vow. Everyone in the immortal realm knew that this was absolutely impossible, let alone him. However, after hearing Qing Devil's words, everyone was even more confused. Jun Lingxuan, do you mean that it's impossible for cultivators of the darkness attribute to appear here? Nangong Yuqing asked. Qing Devil nodded. That's right. Aren't you talking nonsense? Nangong Yuqing shook his head and rolled his eyes. Di Baichen is here, and he has the darkness attribute. As soon as he said that, everyone nodded. They felt that Qing Devil was just trying to please the crowd. The truth was right in front of them. Even if he wanted to make up an excuse, he shouldn't be so lame. Yes, Di Baichen not only came here, but also cultivated here for several days. If you said that cultivators of the darkness attribute couldn't enter the Light Palace, I would believe you. But you said that he couldn't appear here. Aren't you lying through your teeth? For a moment, everyone looked at Jun Lingxuan with disdain. This guy was just trying to attract attention. Xiao Shou also looked embarrassed. She didn't know why Qing Devil suddenly said that. The cultivators of the Jun family and the Xiao family couldn't help but lower their heads. How shameful. Young master, why didn't you use your brain when you came back? Qing Devil also fell into a daze. At this moment, what he cared about was not shameful, but he knew that what he said was true. But how did Di Baichen appear here? This didn't make any sense at all. He opened his mouth, his eyes wide as he stared at Di Baichen in disbelief. He simply couldn't understand what had gone wrong. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other. They could guess what Qing Devil was thinking at this moment. This guy would never have guessed that the two of them would have dual attributes. Di Xiaofeng and the others who knew the situation couldn't help but snicker. They were also happy to see Qing Devil being slapped in the face. Azure Fiend, could you have remembered it wrongly? Xiao Shou asked the Malakian Fiend through voice transmission, after seeing that everyone had retracted their gaze. Qing Devil turned around. Although there was still some doubt and confusion in her eyes, she sounded quite certain. That's impossible. I can't be wrong about that. Seeing Qing Devil's serious look, Xiao Shou couldn't help muttering. In fact, she also thought that Qing Devil must have made a mistake. But if he didn't, it would be strange. There must be something wrong. Azure Fiend's eyes shone with a sharp and serious light. There must be something that he had not thought through. Otherwise, such a situation would never have happened. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen didn't bother to talk to Qing Devil at all. They walked slowly toward the Divine Hall of Light. Beichen, why don't you have a try? Chapter 59:20. Even if the way to open the two divine palaces is the same, you're the one who can open them, Di Beichen said with a smile, his bright eyes full of confidence. His wife was the one chosen by the Divine Hall of Light. I'm not sure if I can open this door, but why don't you try and see if you can open it a little? That was the situation on the other side. If Beichen could also push this door open a crack, that would be really interesting. Di Beichen understood what Bailey Hongzhuang meant, and immediately stepped forward, approaching the door of the Divine Hall of Light. After seeing Di Beichen and his wife's actions, Xu Yingming and the others were more and more certain that Jun Lingxuan was talking nonsense. Di Beichen was trying to open the door of the Divine Hall of Light. On the contrary, many cultivators couldn't help but think that since Bailey Hongzhuang could go to the Divine Hall of Light, they should be able to go there too. Perhaps they would be able to obtain some other opportunities after going there. Everyone suddenly became excited. If they couldn't do it here, they could try the other way. Qing Devil's eyes were fixed on Di Beichen. The closer Di Beichen was to the Statue of Light, the more surprised he was. This was unbelievable. He even wanted those guys in the immortal realm to see if everything in front of him was real. A tall and straight figure stood in front of the door of the Divine Hall of Light. The dazzling light shrouded him, making him look like a god. His white back seemed to have completely blended into the light, giving off a sacred and inviolable aura. Just the sight of his back was enough to move people's hearts. Di Beichen looked at the tightly closed door in front of him, which was covered with simple patterns without any words. However, these seemingly simple patterns gave off a lofty aura. Di Beichen slowly stretched out his hand. Facing the strong aura of light, he was also devout. This kind of power was unimaginably powerful. You're overestimating yourself. Seeing that Di Beichen intended to open the door directly, Qing Devil showed a hint of disdain in her eyes. Previously, they had already tried all methods, but they were still unable to open this door. After Di Beichen arrived, he planned to push her away without saying anything. This was too whimsical. Di Beichen is used to being arrogant. It's not strange at all. Xiao Sou had a venomous look on her face. Every time she saw the man who had once been engaged to her, her feelings became extremely complicated. Could it be that Beichen really pushed open the door of the Darkness Shrine? Lin Qianqian was speechless. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang was serious, she had never taken it to heart. Although Hongzhuang had always been a cautious person, she would often joke around with them. However, at this moment, after seeing Di Beichen's actions, she suddenly felt that everything Hongzhuang had said previously might be true. Lin Taxing couldn't help but be stunned when he heard that, but he couldn't help but smirk. If Beichen really pushes this door open, Qing Devil will probably be infuriated to death. He remembered very clearly that Qing Devil had been struggling with this door for a long time. Regardless of whether they pushed, kicked, used brute force, or gathered everyone's power, the door remained motionless and showed no signs of opening. Chapter 59:21. Because Qing Devil was so concerned about this matter, they were sure that there must be a great treasure here. Squeak. The dull sound attracted everyone's attention. Almost immediately, everyone's eyes turned to the tightly shut door. In their line of sight, Di Beichen's hands were placed on top of the door, and in everyone's eyes, the unshakable door actually had a gap. That's right. It was just a crack. The crack was not big, but it was clearly displayed in front of everyone. At this moment, no one could sit still. Everyone stood up and rushed to Di Beichen's side. He opened the door just like that. Nangong Yuqing stared at Di Beichen in a daze, and he was extremely shocked. Recalling his desperate appearance before, the corners of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. Was this door discriminating against him? Was the gap between him and Di Beichen so big? My God, it's true. Xiren couldn't help but complain. Beichen's strength has improved a lot recently. Shangguan Yingying said excitedly. Haha, I always feel that Beichen and Hong Zhuang are two magical people. Let's go and have a look. The Malakian fiend did not know what to say at this moment. Everything that he remembered was not wrong. However, he just said that Di Beichen couldn't get close to the Statue of Light. Now Di Beichen opened the door of the Statue of Light. This was not a slap to his face, but a kick to his face. Even he felt that he had lost face at this moment. The cultivators of the Jun family couldn't help but sigh after seeing the dark expression on their young master's face. Wherever Di Beichen appeared, their young master would have this expression. Regarding this, they were also very helpless. After Di Beichen opened the door a little, there was a smile in his eyes. Wife, your judgment is correct. Previously, he did not see how Hong Zhuang had opened the door. Now that he had experienced it firsthand, he understood. After pushing open a crack, no matter how hard he tried, the door would not budge. It was completely different from when he pushed open the door of darkness. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Beichen, I feel that all of this is very magical. Why was it that when so many people were unable to push it away, it was different when it was in their hands? What did all this mean? Di Beichen's eyes darkened. He also felt that all of this had a deeper meaning. Unfortunately, they were unable to find out the answer for now. However, he did not feel disappointed because of this. He always felt that there was a mysterious force guiding them, and he believed that there would be a chance in the future to figure it out. Qing Devil walked quickly to Di Beichen and Xia Shaluo. Looking at the gap in front of her, she was extremely shocked. He could not believe that Di Beichen could push open the door so easily. Thinking of this, he could not help but try again. However, he found that the door was extremely heavy and could not be moved at all. Di Beichen, since you can push open the door, you should completely push it open. Nangong Yuqing could not help but say. Everyone could not help but feel excited. As long as they pushed open the door, they would be able to get in touch with the inheritance inside. Chapter 59:22. Di Xiaofeng looked at Di Beichen, who had stopped moving after pushing the door open. He lowered his voice and said, Beichen, even if you don't want everyone to go in, there's no other way. No one will be willing to leave. We don't know when this door will disappear. In my opinion, it's better to just push it open. Listening to Di Xiaofeng's words, Di Beichen couldn't help but laugh. His big brother was really. Big brother, it's not that I don't want to push it open, but I can't. Di Xiaofeng was stunned and looked at Di Beichen in astonishment. You're not joking, are you? Of course not. Di Beichen chuckled. I'm not the one chosen by this door. Only Hong Zhuang can completely push it open. Beichen's words make sense. Hong Zhuang is the holy maiden of the light. Among us, the one most likely to open this door is Hong Zhuang. Lin Qianqian said. Xiao Sou also felt disdain after hearing Di Beichen and the others' conversation. Di Beichen really wanted to support Bailey Hongzhuang at all times. The reason why he said this was to set off Bailey Hongzhuang's status as the holy maiden of the light. She didn't believe that all of this was true. In the next moment, Xiao Sou walked to the door and said, Let me try. In terms of the power of light, Bailey Hongzhuang was only slightly stronger than her. Since Di Beichen had already pushed the door open, it should be even easier to push it open. If she could push the door open, then all the glory would naturally belong to her. In this way, she would be able to completely turn the tables, instead of letting Bailey Hongzhuang steal all the limelight. Hongzhuang. Noticing Xiao Sou's actions, Shang Guanning couldn't help but remind Bailey Hongzhuang that such a good opportunity couldn't be taken away by Xiao Sou. Bailey Hongzhuang only shook her head slightly, indicating for Shang Guanning to rest assured. If Xiao Sou could push it open, it would be a miracle. After seeing Xiao Sou's confident look, the others were also curious. They didn't know if she could really succeed. Suddenly, Xiao Sou's hands pushed forward, but found that the door didn't move. Impossible. Xiao Seiwu's eyes narrowed, and she once again pushed forward with all her strength. However, the result was still the same. Everyone sighed and shook their heads. It was a mistake to place their hopes on Xiao Seiwu. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Xiao Sou indifferently. If you don't give up, you can try again. Her casual words directly poked Xiao Soa's sore spot. She had already lost face, and now she was mercilessly ridiculed by Bailey Hongzhuang. Her face turned from white to blue, from blue to red, and finally became as red as a pig's liver. She stared at Bailey Hongzhuang with resentment. Then she lowered her head and slowly retreated behind Qing Devil. At this moment, she really wished she could find a crack to hide in. She couldn't understand why Di Beichen could push the door open, but she couldn't. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang stood in front of the door. Bailey Hongzhuang, I don't think you can succeed. Xiao Sudong couldn't help but say. Now you are laughing at my sister. Let's see what you can do when you are embarrassed later. Xiao Sudong, you are always worrying about others. Why don't you worry about yourself? Bailey Hongzhuang said indifferently. Xiao Sudong snorted and crossed his arms in front of his chest, waiting to see a good show. Chapter 59-23. The other cultivators were astonished when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang's confident look. Bailey Hongzhuang had always kept a low profile, but she was different when she met Xiao Sou and the others. Speaking of which, even the onlookers felt that these people were destined to be her enemies in her previous life. As long as they met, they were destined to fight. As Bailey Hongzhuang stood in front of the door, everyone's attention was drawn to her as they looked nervous and excited. Xiao Sou had failed and Bailey Hongzhuang was their only hope. If Bailey Hongzhuang was unable to open this door, then they were afraid that they would have no fate with the inheritance of the Divine Light statue. Seeing that everyone's attention had shifted to Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao Sou raised her head. Her eyes were filled with undisguised disgust and resentment. She kept repeating in her heart that Bailey Hongzhuang would fail. Even if she had to give up this inheritance, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang was humiliated in front of everyone, she was willing to do so. Bailey Hongzhuang had always kept a low profile, so she rarely did anything embarrassing. Today she was acting out of character. Wasn't this a good opportunity? Looking at the door of light in front of her, the simple and mysterious pattern inexplicably calmed Bailey Hongzhuang's heart. She was full of respect, piety, and yearning as she slowly stretched out her hands and pushed the door. Time seemed to stand still. Everyone held their breaths as they looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's hands. Success or failure depended on this move. Bailey Hongzhuang did not sense the crowd's nervousness at all. She only slowly pushed the door open. She did not use any more strength, just like how she usually did. Rumble. A dull sound was heard. The door, which was as heavy as 1,000 caddies and could not be shaken in everyone's eyes, was actually like an ordinary door at this moment. It opened with a gentle push. Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but be dumbfounded. Thinking back to how they had tried their best, they couldn't even move a single inch. However, in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang, it couldn't be any easier. If there was no comparison, then there would be no harm. This was too frustrating for them. Lin Taxing and the others could not help but look at each other after seeing this scene. They were sure that everything Bailey Hongzhuang had said before was true. There was no deception at all. Hongzhuang actually pushed him away with just a gentle push. That's too scary. Lin Qianqian's lips twitched. So, why were they trying so hard just now? Lin Taxing nodded. So it's not surprising that the gate of the Statue of Darkness was opened by Beichen. Looking at the door that was easily pushed open, Xiao Sudong could no longer maintain his previous calm posture. His eyes were wide open, and his head couldn't help but lean forward. Every nerve in his body was expressing the shock and disbelief in his heart. How is this possible? Xiao Sou was also dumbfounded. Bailey Hongzhuang had actually pushed the door open. Could it be that this was really the inheritance of the Saint of Light? Even if Bailey Hongzhuang had snatched the position of the Saint of Light, she did not think that there was a big gap between them. However, the scene in front of her gave her a resounding slap in the face. She had pushed so hard, but the door did not move at all. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had opened it with just a casual push. Chapter 59-24. This sense of defeat and humiliation did not only come from Bailey Hongzhuang. but also from Di Baichen. If it was only Bailey Hongzhuang who did it, it would be fine. After all, she was the holy maiden of light, and everyone would not bring up the previous matter again. But now, it was not only Bailey Hongzhuang who had opened this door. Even Di Baichen had opened a crack. On the other hand, they had always been known as the #1 light attribute genius, but they had never thought that they could not even open a crack. The practitioners of the Xiao family lowered their heads one after another. First, it was Jun Lingxuan who had made a fool of himself, and now it was their young Mississippi. What was going on? For a moment, they even felt that it was wrong to go against Di Baichen from the beginning. During this period of time, they had never stopped competing with Di Baichen, but almost every time they would lose. Fortunately, after experiencing so many things, everyone seemed to have gradually gotten used to it, and could be considered to have some understanding. Bailey Hongzhuang turned her gaze and looked at Xiao Sou and Xiao Sudong, who were not far away. Her eyebrows were slightly raised, and her beautiful and refined face rippled with a faintly discernible playful smile. Xiao Sudong, now you don't have to worry about me, right? As soon as these words came out, Xiao Sudong's face immediately flushed red, and even his ears were so red that it seemed as if they could drip blood. He stared blankly at Bailey Hongzhuang. His slightly agitated mouth seemed to have countless things to say, but in the end, he was like a deflated balloon, and his whole person was dejected, not saying a word. What else could he say? Could it be that he felt that he had not lost enough face? Bailey Hongzhuang had no intention to pay attention to Xiao Sudong anymore. Speaking of which, Xiao Sudong was the young master of the Xiao family, and if there were no accidents, the position of the family head should fall on his head in the future. However, based on the current situation, it was obvious that he did not have the ability to take charge of everything on his own. At present, the person in the limelight in the Xiao family was Xiao Sou. After all, in the past few years, she had always been known as the Holy Maiden of Light. As the door was opened, everyone could not help but look inside. After staying outside the door for so long, they were really too curious. In their line of sight, an unusually bright hall appeared in their line of sight. The ceiling of the hall was inlaid with huge luminous pearls, and the dazzling and pure light power filled the entire hall. There were also many characters engraved on the walls of the hall, but the content was also indecipherable. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the text on the wall, and was a little surprised, because the text was different from the text she had seen in the dark temple. Why are the words of the shrine? Could it be that these are not words? This was really a little of light of light. Of light of light. Of light of light of light. Di Baichen turned his eyes to Qing Devil. Qing Devil was from the immortal realm. If the words on the wall were from the immortal realm, then Qing Devil would definitely be able to understand them. After entering the hall, Qing Devil looked at the words around him in surprise. The rich light power hit him in the face, and he felt indescribably comfortable. This was the place that he had always dreamed of entering. After waiting for so many years, he finally got his wish. Sure enough, the situation here was the same as what he had understood at the beginning. It was as sacred as a fairyland, with an inviolable holy aura. Chapter 59-25. Almost all the cultivators subconsciously closed their eyes after entering the radiant shrine, carefully feeling the feeling of the light energy passing through their bodies. Their bodies were unprecedentedly relaxed, as if they could float in the air. Some injured cultivators were surprised to find that their wounds began to heal under the envelopment of the power of light. Even the pill toxins that had accumulated in their bodies for many years, and even the hidden dangers of cultivation, seemed to have quietly disappeared. This feeling could not be described with words. Oh my God, the feeling of the power of light flowing through my body is so wonderful. How good would it be if I could stay in a place like this forever? I really want to stay here forever. My cultivation has been progressing at a godly speed recently. When I first entered the ancient battlefield, I was a little depressed. After walking for so long, I didn't gain anything, but now I feel that I was right to come. Even if I could find a lot of treasures in the past, It would definitely not be as great as this time. Everyone sighed with emotion. Almost everyone had the same thoughts. Just staying here for a while was enough to dispel all the disappointment from before. Even if they obtained treasures of heaven and earth, it could not compare to the improvement of their cultivation in their eyes. Moreover, the hidden injuries in their bodies had disappeared. Usually, even if they paid a huge price, they could not completely cure it. If they told all the cultivators in the outside world about everything here, there would be people who would be envious to death. Hong Zhuang, did you feel the same when you entered the Dark Palace? Shangguan Yingying stood beside Bailey Hong Zhuang, her delicate face full of curiosity. It's a little similar. Bailey Hong Zhuang nodded slightly. Although it was pitch black there, it was of great help to our cultivation. I think it should be the difference in attributes. Everything else is the same. Xiren said slowly. Speaking of which, I really envy you. You have 2 attributes and can enter from both sides. Di Beichen raised his eyebrows. Maybe there will be a metal attribute statue in the future. You should be satisfied. Maybe there really will be one. Xiren's eyes lit up. This time I obtained the inheritance, and my cultivation improved with great difficulty. I thought that I would be able to surpass you this time. But now, it seems like there's no hope. Di Beichen's lips curled into a faint smile. You, this fellow, haven't changed your mind after so many years. Of course, that's my obsession. When Xiren chuckled. But I'm already used to being second place forever. Beichen, the hall of the Statue of Light is much smaller than the one over there. What's going on? Deep in thought, Bailey Hongzhuang carefully observed her surroundings. The size of the hall in front of her was naturally not small. Even though there were so many of them gathered here, it still seemed empty. However, compared to the massive hall of the Darkness Shrine, there was clearly a huge gap. Since light and darkness have always been opposites, although many situations are very similar, there should still be some small differences. Di Beichen pondered. We don't have to worry for the time being. Since we're here, we'll figure it out eventually. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. When they first entered the Darkness Shrine, nothing happened, and it only appeared later. Chapter 59-27. Di Beichen slowly walked up to Qing Devil. After noticing his appearance, Qing Devil looked a little scared. Qing Devil, since you are from the immortal realm, you should be able to understand the words on the wall, right? Di Beichen said in a cold voice. While looking at the words on the wall in front of him, he glanced at Qing Devil, who was not far away from him. You know about the immortal realm? Qing Devil didn't intend to pay attention to Di Beichen at first. He could sense that Di Beichen's cultivation had improved a lot recently. Although Qin Haodong had improved a lot recently, he didn't want to do something he wasn't sure about. Besides, in his eyes, nothing was more important than the inheritance of the Divine Hall of Light. He didn't want to waste his time on Di Beichen at this critical moment. However, it was strange that Di Beichen knew about the immortal realm. As far as he knew, the guys in the upper world didn't know about the existence of the immortal realm at all. I know, Di Beichen said calmly. If you don't want to be targeted by me here, tell me about it. Are you threatening me? Qing Devil's voice suddenly turned cold. His dark eyes were filled with cold light, as if there were endless sharp knives shooting at Di Beichen. In his eyes, this insignificant guy dared to threaten him? Ah! Di Beichen's lips curled into a bloodthirsty arc. His black jade-like eyes didn't have the slightest bit of warmth, but for some reason, they carried an unparalleled murderous aura. I know you used to be a strong man, but now you are occupying Jun Lingxuan's body. Even if you have countless better ways to improve, it will take time. You should be clear about the situation now. If we really fight, you will be the one who will die. Di Beichen casually turned his gaze away. His indifferent appearance was as if he was commenting on a landscape painting. But every word and sentence made people tremble with fear. Do you know why I didn't kill you directly? Qing Devil was shocked. Just because of this? Di Baichen raised his eyebrows and looked at him mockingly. His expression had explained everything. The look in the Azure Fiend's eyes gradually changed from the initial coldness to a complicated one. This damn guy in front of him made him feel very difficult to deal with. If he was still the old him, Di Baichen wouldn't even be qualified to challenge him. Similarly, he also understood that everything Di Baichen said at the moment was true. Di Baichen's eyes made him afraid. He had seen this kind of dangerous eyes and indifferent attitude. He had seen it before. This kind of guy, if given enough time and opportunity, would definitely become a very terrifying guy in the future. Not only him, but also Bailey Hongzhuang. With the two of them together, they were definitely an existence that would give their enemies a headache. Qing Yemo was silent for a moment before he suddenly said, "I can make a deal with you." Let's hear it. Bailey Hongzhuang once took something from me. As long as she gives it back to me, I will tell you all about the situation of this temple. Di Baichen was surprised to hear this. He didn't know when Hongzhuang took something from Qing Devil. Bailey Hongzhuang walked over slowly after noticing the conversation between Di Baichen and Qing Devil. Hearing Qing Devil's words, she checked her storage ring. Chapter 59-28. In the process of searching, she also found some things in the palace. She was in a hurry and thought it might be something good. So she threw it into the storage ring one after another. After she found out that everything was an illusion, she understood that everything she had put away was just an illusion. It was nothing at all. When they came out of the illusion, everything naturally ceased to exist. She didn't expect that there was something here, but she didn't pay attention to it for a while. After searching for a while, she found a scroll. She remembered that when she first saw this ancient scroll, she was a little surprised because this thing looked too old, but it was well preserved. Since Qing Devil cared so much about it, it must be something extraordinary. She just glanced at it and didn't look at it carefully. It was all thanks to Malakian Fiend's reminder. Otherwise, she did not know when she would have noticed the scroll in her storage ring. When she had the time, she would definitely study it properly. Qing Devil's eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang, with a little eagerness. "Do you agree to this deal?" "Of course not," Di Baichen said calmly. Qing Devil was stunned, and his eyes became complicated. "Why? Now we have all the advantages. You are not qualified to negotiate with us at all. Why should we agree to your deal?" Di Baichen chuckled. "Logically speaking, you should be our senior. Why are you so naive?" Qing Devil's face became extremely gloomy. He stared at Di Baichen angrily. Obviously this guy tricked him on purpose. And he was tricked. This was a disgrace. "Tell me everything you know about the Temple of Light," said Linley. Di Baichen stared at Qing Devil with his dark eyes. He didn't show any fierceness, but Qing Devil felt an indescribable pressure. This guy was going to threaten him until the end. Qing Yemo subconsciously looked around. Although he had the support of the Jun family and the Xiao family, compared to the helpers of Di Baichen and the others, these people were simply not enough to look at. The only way was to leave here. But he was unwilling to leave here. He had waited for this opportunity for so many years. How could he give it up because of this? Thinking of this, Qing Devil couldn't help but feel depressed. The guy he possessed was too weak. Not only was his cultivation weak, but as the young master of a family, he had a good relationship with only the family he married into. He didn't even have a close relationship with the other families. He didn't know how this guy became the young master of a family. How could the family have a good future with such an ability? It was no wonder that the Jun family had been unable to defeat the Di family all these years. Just this point alone was enough to show it. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen stood on both sides. From the perspective of the two people, no matter which direction Qing Emo chose to leave, they would be able to stop him in the first moment. After careful consideration, Qing Devil chose to compromise. A wise man submits to circumstances. He would have plenty of opportunities to take revenge in the future. What do you want to know? Everything you know about the Divine Palace of Light. Chapter 59:29. These were all precious treasures. Even if they couldn't understand them, they would still feel their hearts trembling. If they could understand them, they would probably be in a state of shock right now. They couldn't judge whether what Qing Devil said was true or false. This guy was not an honest person. Coupled with the previous hatred between the two sides, it was not easy to hear one or two truthful words from his mouth. Fortunately, Qing Devil was not the only person they knew in the immortal region. When they went back, they would take the content to consult several elders such as Granny Hua. They were not like Qing Devil. What they said could be completely trusted. Xiao Soa noticed that Qing Devil was communicating with Bailey Hongzhuang. She was shocked. These two guys had always been against them. Maybe they were thinking about how to expose Qing Devil's face at this moment. She walked quickly to Qing Devil's side. Her face was full of nervousness. What do you want to do? Don't be so nervous. We are just communicating. Di Beichen looked at Xiao Soa with a faint smile. Are you so worried that others will expose your lie? As soon as these words came out, Xiao Soa's heart skipped a beat. She knew that this kind of thing could be hidden from others, but it couldn't be hidden from Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. Fortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't have the time to talk nonsense with her at this moment. Facing so much content, Bailey Hongzhuang naturally wouldn't delay. She immediately took out a pen and paper and copied again. Most cultivators were immersed in cultivation at this moment. Cultivating at this moment would definitely yield twice the result with half the effort. Lin Yi was a little surprised when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang taking out a pen and paper and copying so seriously. Second cousin-in-law, are you going to copy all the content here? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I always feel that these contents should be very precious. Since I have encountered it, I have to copy it even if I don't understand it. Hearing this, Lin Yi looked around with emotion. But everyone is basically cultivating now. Such a good opportunity is rare. Usually, there was not much difference in their cultivations, but if they spent all their time copying, then their cultivations would be weaker than the other cultivators. This would be extremely disadvantageous for their future training and competition. Seeing Lin Yi's worried look, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled lightly. Don't worry. Don't worry about me. Such a good opportunity is hard to come by. You should also seize the opportunity to cultivate. The more you raise your cultivation, the more benefits you'll receive in the future. Don't you need me to copy it for you? No need. Beichen and I can copy it ourselves. The cultivation techniques of Lin Yi and others were obviously different from theirs. Even in such an environment, they couldn't operate on their own. Naturally, they had to seize the opportunity. At this moment, Xiao Xuanzi was also staying beside Di Beichen. In such a good environment, its cultivation could also increase rapidly. They had left Xiao Xuanzi behind when they were heading to the Darkness Shrine. After all, this guy's strength also needed to be improved to keep up with everyone. After returning, Di Beichen noticed that Xiao Xuanzi's cultivation had improved a lot compared to before. As a mystical fire monster rock, its cultivation talent was still very abnormal. Otherwise, it would be impossible to catch up with everyone's cultivation in such a short time. However, Hong Zhuang's performance after she entered a meditative state was even more shocking. Is this why the Holy Maiden is different from the rest? Bailey Hongzhuang really deserves to be called the Holy Maiden of the Light. She looks just like a god. That's precisely why she can open the door of the shrine so easily. If it were any other cultivator of the light attribute, they wouldn't be able to do it at all. Xiao Soa looked at the woman who was emitting a dazzling light, and her heart was filled with jealousy. The glory that once belonged to her had all been snatched away by Bailey Hongzhuang. Most importantly, she had never had anything like this woman before. Chapter 59:31. Not only Xiao Souo, but some cultivators also took out their pens and paper. Although they didn't expect to be as powerful as Bailey Hongzhuang, if they could gain some enlightenment from it, the benefits would definitely be greater than cultivating here. At this moment, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, they could feel that her aura seemed to be purer than usual. After seeing everyone's actions, Di Xiaofeng and the others' lips twitched slightly. These guys were really going with the flow. How naive. Didn't they think about Hongzhuang's talent in the light attribute? They can't even compare to her. Shengguan Yingying shook her head. She was very clear about the difference between her and Hongzhuang. So she didn't think about anything and continued to cultivate. In her opinion, she was very lucky to have come to the ancient battlefield this time, to obtain the inheritance of the pavilion in the middle of the lake. Now that she had the opportunity to improve her cultivation, this kind of opportunity was much better than cultivating in the outside world. What she wanted to do now was to seize the opportunity and improve as soon as possible. Di Beichen also entered a meditative state during the process of copying. Rich light energy floated around his body, bright and dazzling. His black hair poured down in torrents, beautiful and charming. His thin and tall figure sat on the ground, exuding a proud and holy aura. A pair of deep eyes were confident and proud, domineering and noble. He was like a god, exuding a dazzling brilliance. Everyone looked at the two white figures and felt that the two were an immortal couple, completely untainted by the aura of mortals. Mo Yunjue looked at the dazzling picture scroll, and a trace of complexity and sadness flashed in his eyes. But soon, he sorted out his emotions and began to cultivate again. Xiao Souo was copying the words while thinking that she must quickly enter a meditative state. Only in this way could she let everyone take her seriously again. She then looked at the Malakian fiend who was next to her. Qing Devil had been copying here since the beginning. Among everyone, only he and Bailey Hongzhuang were doing the same thing. Did this mean that Qing Devil also knew the benefits of copying? Ling Sun, how long do you need to copy before you can enter a meditative state? Hearing this, Qing Devil looked at Xiao Souo speechlessly. It depends on the opportunity to enter a meditative state. It has nothing to do with copying. Does this woman have a donkey's brain? Although he was surprised that Bailey Hongzhuang and Ling Sun could enter a meditative state at this time, he also understood that their attainments in the light attribute must be far superior to others. After obtaining Jun Lingxuan's memories, he also knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was the saintess of the light. Originally, he had been dismissive of the so-called saint of light from the upper realm. But now, it seemed that she was indeed quite capable. Wait, Qing Devil's eyes immediately. Far's attainments in the light attribute? How could this be possible? Qing Devil turned his eyes to Di Beichen. Isn't this guy a practitioner of the dark attribute? How could he enter a meditative state in the divine hall of light? The Malakian fiend felt his mind go blank for a moment. After a while, he finally thought of a possible answer. Di Beichen definitely had more than the dark attribute. It was very likely that he had awakened the light attribute at the same time. Xiao Souo saw that Qing Devil suddenly stopped talking to her. She couldn't help waving her hand in front of his eyes. Ling Sun, what's wrong with you? What are you thinking about? However, when this thought was confirmed, he couldn't help but feel somewhat awkward. This was truly a case of talent. Since Di Beichen was in such a situation, would it be the same for Hongzhuang? Previously, She had stayed at the darkness idol for a long time. Chapter 59:33. Xiaofeng, is this true? Morong Jing hurriedly asked Di Xiaofeng after hearing the news. Di Xiaofeng was Di Beichen's elder brother, so he must be very clear about the specific situation. Di Xiaofeng smiled faintly. Isn't it already obvious? This tacit admission also made Morong Jing and the others understand that Jun Lingxuan's guess was true, and they were all stunned. Oh my god, Beichen has awakened his attributes for a few years now, and you've been hiding this news all this time? Morong Jing found it hard to believe. He had been training with Beichen for so long, but he had never found out. Thinking about it, he was really slow. Jiang Wenyan took a deep breath and shook his head. I don't know what to say. Beichen is really too abnormal. Lin Qianqian and the others also sighed, but this was good news for them. The stronger Beichen was, the happier they would be. Xiao Sou didn't believe it at first, but after hearing Di Xiaofeng's affirmative answer, she understood that all this was true, and she suddenly sighed in her heart. Who would have thought that the real situation would be like this? With dual attributes and such a strong cultivation talent, as long as Di Beichen didn't die, his future achievements could be imagined. This was the man who had once been engaged to her. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but resent the Jun family. If the Jun family hadn't forcibly sent Beichen to the underworld, then she would have become a couple with Di Beichen, and Bailey Hongzhuang would have nothing to do with her. Fortunately, now there was Qing Devil. Qing Devil used to be so strong, so with a little more time, Qing Devil would definitely be stronger than Di Beichen. Her bright and beautiful eyes bloomed with strong brilliance. Even if she couldn't beat Bailey Hongzhuang, as long as Qing Devil could do it, the result would be the same. However, Xiao Sou, who was wishful thinking, ignored Qing Devil's own thoughts. When she found out in the future, she would truly regret it. Time passed slowly. When Di Beichen woke up from his meditative state, he found that everyone was looking at him strangely. He frowned and turned to look at Di Xiaofeng. Di Xiaofeng only smiled and shrugged, letting Di Beichen experience it himself. However, he soon understood what was going on because as soon as he woke up, the other cultivators began to discuss among themselves. The reason why he had kept the news a secret was because there had never been anyone with dual attributes. Furthermore, the threat of the Xiao family and the Jun family meant that his cultivation at that time wasn't high enough to hold his own. Now he was undoubtedly much stronger than before. Even if this news were to spread, there was no need to worry. On the contrary, this news would add more glory to the family. After a brief moment of confusion, Di Beichen turned his gaze to Bailey Hongzhuang. At this moment, she was still in a meditative state. Miraculously, her hands didn't stop moving, and she was still copying. Bailey Hongzhuang's handwriting was very beautiful. It was graceful and elegant just like her. Looking at the words was a pleasure. Di Beichen's smile unconsciously carried a trace of affection. Only then did he continue to copy the content on the wall. After copying some content, Xiao Sou found that she couldn't enter a meditative state at all. She immediately chose to give up. Chapter 59:34. The other cultivators had the same reaction as Xiao Sou. Although the content seemed to be mysterious, they could not understand what it was. Because he didn't understand the language at all, it was very difficult to even copy it. As they watched the other cultivators cultivate, everyone gradually chose to give up as well. Even if they could break through one more level, it would be great. For the first time, Bailey Hongzhuang felt that she was so close to the true meaning of the light attribute, as if it was just at her fingertips. However, there was still a layer of invisible fog blocking her. During the time she was meditating, her understanding of the light attribute increased rapidly. This state was really amazing. Although it was not long, it was comparable to spending years, or even decades to gain more. When Bailey Hongzhuang came out of the meditative state, She finally understood Di Baichen's feeling. She had been in the same position for a long time, and her body was a little stiff. However, when she saw the content she had copied, she could not help but be surprised. I've already copied so much? Di Baichen smiled faintly. Your hand speed in this meditative state is much faster than usual. I even suspect that you don't know these ancient words. This was true. He realized that Bailey Hongzhuang's speed in copying was extremely fast after she entered the meditative state. Because these words were not familiar to them, they looked at the wall frequently in the process of copying. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang entered the meditative state, her speed was much faster than usual. Are you kidding me? Bailey Hongzhuang laughed involuntarily. I must have spent a lot of time in the meditative state. Di Baichen raised his eyebrows slightly, and his lips curved into a charming smile. It was indeed a long time. How many days have we been here? 5 days. We have been here for a few days, but there hasn't been any movement. Is there some kind of mechanism here? Bailey Hongzhuang slightly frowned. Although there was a lot of content on the walls, she carefully looked at the content that she and Di Baichen had copied. There was not much left. By the time they finished copying all the contents, it was time to look around. Di Baichen looked around and said, Indeed, we can give it a try. The situation in the Brilliance Shrine is different from the Darkness Shrine. I think the Azure Fiend is telling the truth when he said that this place needs to be tested. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I think so too. But it's been a few days and there hasn't been an assessment yet. If it really exists, I'm afraid we'll have to find it ourselves. In fact, this was the case for most legacies. The Darkness Sanctuary was an exception. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang closed her eyes. Then the aura of a breakthrough came. Boom! A sound attracted everyone's attention. The tyrannical aura caused everyone to be shocked. They could tell from Bailey Hongzhuang's state that she was breaking through. However, the last time they saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she was also at the Radiant Moon Realm like everyone else. After not seeing her for a while, she had already broken through to the Radiant Moon Realm? 6th Order Radiant Moon Realm. Second cousin-in-law's improvement in strength is too terrifying. Currently, there are only a few people who have broken through to the Radiant Moon Realm. Second cousin-in-law is already at the 6th Order Radiant Moon Realm? Chapter 5935. Jiang Wenyan shook his head. I originally thought that my cultivation speed was already pretty good. But compared to them, the difference is so huge that even I don't want to admit it. Morong Jingshan nodded in agreement and put a hand on Di Xiaofeng's shoulder. Xiaofeng, with such a sister-in-law, do you feel a lot of pressure? What pressure can I feel? Di Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows. If there is any pressure, it should be Baichen. However, according to the usual situation, Baichen's cultivation is probably not weaker than Hongzhuang. As soon as these words came out, Chen Feng and others paused slightly. After thinking carefully, they felt that what Di Xiaofeng said was very reasonable. Bailey Hongzhuang's breakthrough speed was terrifying. Was Di Baichen not terrifying? These two guys, breaking through was like playing around. I finally understand why second cousin-in-law said that even if she copied, it would not affect her cultivation. I haven't broken through until now, but second cousin-in-law has already broken through. Everyone looked at each other. Whether this was a blow to Linyi, it was also a blow to them. Another breakthrough sound came, and the rich light power wrapped Bailey Hongzhuang's whole body. Even Di Baichen, who was beside Bailey Hongzhuang, was surrounded. 7th Order Burning Moon. Bailey Hongzhuang broke through again. Everyone was shocked. The advantage of the Holy Lady of Light was completely displayed. The Light Temple itself was the home ground of the Holy Lady of Light. If Bailey Hongzhuang becoming the Holy Lady of Light was not much of a gap in everyone's eyes before, then at this moment, everyone had discovered the difference between them. Bailey Hongzhuang's breakthrough speed is so fast. Ordinary men are really under a lot of pressure when they are with her. Xu Yingming couldn't help but sigh. There was still a big gap in strength between him and Bailey Hongzhuang. But now Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation had surpassed his. Nangong Yuqing's heart was also filled with a sour taste. Being defeated by a woman like this, one could imagine how he felt. In my opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang is no ordinary person. Even Di Beichen has been left behind by her. She didn't know where this Di Beichen's luck came from to marry such a beautiful woman. However, just when everyone felt that Di Beichen could not compare to Bailey Hongzhuang, the sound of a breakthrough suddenly came from the light cyclone. Boom! He had broken through. Just when everyone was sighing at how Bailey Hongzhuang had broken through 3 levels after gaining enlightenment, they suddenly felt that there was something wrong with the aura of the breakthrough. Why is the aura of this breakthrough suddenly so much stronger? Moreover, the scale has also increased. Something doesn't seem right. Nangong Yuqing frowned. What exactly was wrong? He couldn't put his finger on it. Chu Yingming nodded slightly. This aura, it's like breaking through to the heavenly moon stage. As soon as he said that, everyone was stunned. After sensing it carefully, they felt that it was really the aura of a breakthrough to the heavenly moon stage. Chen Feng and the rest exchanged glances before looking at the 2 people wrapped in the cyclone. A guess appeared in their minds. Di Beichen's strength shouldn't be so abnormal, right? The corner of Lin Taxing's mouth twitched. It was obviously a question, but when he said it, he felt that it was the truth. Chapter 59:36. No matter how much they didn't want to believe it, after sensing Di Beichen's aura, they had no choice but to face the truth. Di Beichen had already broken through to the Sky Moon stage. Among the many cultivators present, being able to break through to the Burning Moon stage was already very good. Now that a Sky Moon stage cultivator had suddenly appeared, it was truly unique. Nangong Yuqing silently closed his eyes and continued to cultivate. He had just said that Di Beichen was no longer worthy of Bailey Hongzhuang. But in the blink of an eye, Di Beichen had done it on purpose. If he had broken through earlier, he wouldn't have made such a joke out of himself. After Di Beichen had entered a meditative state, the spirit energy in his body had continuously increased. However, breaking through from the Burning Moon stage to the Sky Moon stage required an enormous amount of spirit energy. When Bailey Hongzhuang had broken through, he had been enveloped by the rich light energy, allowing him to break through to the Sky Moon stage in one go. Feeling the aura of the Sky Moon stage, Di Beichen's lips curled into a faint smile. His handsome face suddenly melted like snow, refreshing the heart. Everyone was silent. Other than envy, what else could they do? Beichen, you've broken through to the Sky Moon stage? Bailey Hongzhuang's lustrous eyes were like stars, shining with a dazzling luster. Her delicate and beautiful face could not hide the thick joy. Di Beichen smiled. It's all thanks to my wife. If it wasn't for this environment, it would have taken him a few more days to break through to the Sky Moon stage. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. This experience was probably the most fruitful one so far. Breaking through to the Sky Moon stage from the Nebula Stage 9. If it was any other time, it would have taken an unknown amount of time. Thinking about it, when they returned to see Zhongli Mu would also be surprised. Zhongli Mu was clearly younger than them, but his strength was so much stronger than theirs. It was really a blow to them. After the breakthrough, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen returned to their previous state and continued to copy. 2 days later, the 2 of them had already finished copying the contents of the scroll. After sorting it out, they kept it in their chaos rings. Compared with the 2 of them, Qing Devil was still copying. Xiao Soa didn't have the patience to copy these useless words. However, judging from Qing Devil's speed of copying, Bailey Hongzhuang believed that he really didn't know these words. If they knew each other, their copying speed would be extremely fast. However, his speed was not much faster than theirs. It seemed that it would not be easy for them to figure out what was written on these words. The 2 of them immediately stood up and began to search for the mechanism around the hall. They were very curious about the inheritance of the Temple of Light. After noticing their movements, King Devil quietly turned his gaze and glanced at them, before continuing with his own work. There was nothing on the white wall except for various words. When they were copying earlier, they had already looked at the situation on the wall. The smooth wall, cold to the touch, was like a jade stone with a bit of warmth. Even though there were so many words written on the wall, there was not the slightest bit of uneven feeling. In such a vast hall, where would the mechanism be located? After noticing their movements, Chen Feng couldn't help but ask, "Beichen, what are you looking for?" Chapter 5937. Mechanism? Chen Feng raised his eyebrows. "That's right," Beichen replied. "It's impossible that the Radiant Temple only wants everyone to stay here and cultivate." Hearing this, Chen Feng nodded slightly. Previously, everyone had been cultivating outside. Although the primordial qi in the Radiant Temple was denser, it did not make sense if this was the only purpose. "Let's look around. We should be able to find it." Bailey Hongzhuang looked around. Although there seemed to be nothing, they might be able to find something if they looked carefully. Seeing this, Bai Li Yanche and Ling are also stopped cultivating and helped to search with Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Xiao Xuanzi. When the other cultivators saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the others start to look for the mechanism, they were somewhat astonished. Could it be that there was really a mechanism in this hall? Bailey Hongzhuang carefully looked around, but she couldn't find the slightest clue on the extremely smooth walls. The entire hall was very big. Even if they searched all around, they would still need to spend a lot of time. Everyone spread out and searched the area. Suddenly, Beichen raised his eyebrows and looked at the wall he touched with some surprise. "This place seems to be a little different." As soon as he said this, everyone walked to Beichen's side. Bailey Hongzhuang put her hand on it. Indeed, she felt that the wall here had a little more uneven feeling, which was different from the smoothness of other places. Could it be that this is where the mechanism is? Bailey Hongzhuang was somewhat astonished. However, no matter how she pressed her hand, there was no change. Although this place is a little different, could it be that the previous cultivators could not find the mechanism and used brute force to destroy it? Bai Li Yanche looked at the wall in front of him. He really could not think of a way to open it. "What you said is also possible." Linga smiled. Beichen looked at the wall in front of him and tried to integrate the power of light into it. After this attempt, his eyes lit up. There is indeed something wrong here. Everyone rushed over after noticing the change in Beichen's expression. In fact, everyone's attention had already been drawn when Beichen's group began to search for the mechanism. At this moment, after seeing that they had discovered something, everyone could not hold back the curiosity in their hearts. They simply put down their cultivation and walked over to Beichen and the others. However, just as the crowd approached, they suddenly discovered that the originally unobstructed hall was emitting a dull sound. Everyone immediately looked towards the source of the sound. Upon closer inspection, they discovered that the wall behind them was gradually opening up, revealing what was behind it. "I didn't expect this wall to be a door. There's actually something else behind it." Everyone was stunned. They had thought that the hall was big enough, but now it seemed that the hall was much bigger than they had imagined. "There's actually a pool of water there." Everyone looked in front of them in surprise. It was an extremely wide pool, and it was filled with white mist. In this abnormally bright environment, it looked like a fairyland. Even though there was a certain distance, everyone could still feel the rich power of light there. For a moment, almost everyone approached the pool of water. Chapter 5938. Di Baichen nodded slightly and said, "Yes, this is not a difficult switch to turn on." It was not difficult to find the switch, which meant that the test might not be simple. Bailey Hongzhuang had also expected this. Thinking about what she had gone through in the darkness shrine, she still couldn't help but feel scared. She wondered if the situation in the Brilliance Shrine was the same. If it was no different from experiencing the feeling of being on the verge of death. After noticing the change in her expression, Di Baichen guessed what she was thinking. He chuckled and said, "Don't worry, it might not be the same." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. She also felt that the pain was too terrifying. However, even if it was the same situation, she would be willing to experience it again, as long as she could improve herself. This kind of opportunity was something that most people could only wish for. "Ling Sun, let's go and take a look." Xiao So was a little depressed when she saw that Di Baichen and the rest had discovered the mechanism. But at this moment, she was more curious about what kind of treasure the pool that had suddenly appeared was. Qing Devil also stopped copying when he saw this. To him, the contents on the wall were also extremely precious treasures. The records on the scrolls that he had seen before were not complete, but according to his judgment, the contents were extremely precious. On second thought, he thought that since the Statue of Light was so impressive, how could the things that appeared here be simple? Bailey Hongzhuang walked to the pool. The pool was extremely large, and there would be no problem even if all the cultivators present were to enter it. It was more like a lake than a pool. Everyone gathered outside the pool, and the dense fog drifted away, giving them a refreshing feeling. Standing in front of the pool, everyone couldn't help but feel a sense of yearning. Just standing outside and feeling the dense fog made them feel refreshed. If they could enter the pool, the feeling would be even more obvious. However, no one dared to take the initiative to take that step. Everyone knew how dangerous the inheritance was on a daily basis. The more attractive a treasure looked, the more dangerous it was. If something went wrong after taking a step, no one dared to bear the consequences. At least for now, no one was willing to be the first to eat crabs. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen slowly came to the front of the pool, and everyone's eyes unconsciously fell on them. Ever since they opened the Light Palace, Di Baichen and Lin Li had unknowingly become the backbone of everyone. This pool of water is so clear. It looks like there's a very strong power inside. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the pool of water and felt a sense of yearning. Di Baichen looked at the pool of water, then slowly bent down and sensed it. There is indeed a very powerful force here. According to my judgment, there shouldn't be any danger. After going to the darkness shrine, he had gained a better understanding of darkness and light. Since the Temple of Light was a symbol of light, it was unlikely that they would do anything to take someone's life. These two statues seemed to be existences that could deliver all living beings from torment. Such a thing was obviously unlikely to happen. Di Xiaofeng looked around at everyone who was looking at Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. He was speechless. These guys were completely treating his brother and sister-in-law as the leaders. Chapter 5939. Baichen, ignore them. We're not in a hurry anyway. Di Xiaofeng nudged Di Baichen with his arm, but he didn't hide his voice. Once this was said, everyone's expression became awkward. They didn't know how they knew about Di Baichen and Nangong Wuk. Most importantly, since they could open the door and find the mechanism here, they felt that they should be the ones to solve this problem. Nangong Yuqing's face turned red. He thought about how he usually looked down on Di Baichen, but now he was relying on Di Baichen. Seeing Di Xiaofeng's protective appearance, Di Baichen smiled. He originally didn't plan on testing the water. He never did this kind of business where he would suffer a loss. After hearing Di Xiaofeng's words, everyone was too embarrassed to count on Di Baichen and Nangong Wuk. They even withdrew their gazes. Looking at the pool filled with mist, it was like a delicious cake in everyone's eyes. However, they wanted to know if this cake was poisonous or not. After a while, a cultivator mustered up his courage and walked into the pool. After feeling the energy in the pool, the man couldn't help but exclaim, "Such dense spirit energy. Is there any problem?" "No problem." Everyone else couldn't help but walk into the pool after seeing that the man was safe and sound. For a moment, the sound of water splashing could be heard. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen also walked into the pool. Feeling the energy in the pool, they understood that cultivating here was faster than before. This kind of cultivation speed was faster than cultivating with high-grade spirit stones. It was simply heaven. Everyone's face was filled with joy. If they could cultivate here for a few years, who would be their match when they went out? Looking at the huge pool, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly took a few steps forward. The entire pool was square. Everyone had walked in from one side, so it was very crowded when they gathered together. Not only Bailey Hongzhuang, but the other cultivators also had the same idea. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen kept moving forward. In fact, they were also curious about what was on the other side of the pool. Beichen, the purpose of the Temple of Light seems to be to help everyone cultivate. It doesn't feel like a test. Bailey Hongzhuang looked around. The pool water reminded her of the pool water in her master's inheritance. Similarly, it was filled with extremely dense essence energy. It was just that the energy here was slightly more abundant. This would be of great help to cultivators. It was just that they didn't know where the assessment point was. Di Beichen's eyes were deep as she pondered. Perhaps the test is on the other side of the pool. At this moment, Di Beichen glanced around and suddenly saw a line of words written on the wall of the pool to his right. "Look, there are words written there." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately turned her eyes. As expected, the words were very grand and revealed a kind of elegance and carefreeness. It was a pity that they couldn't understand the meaning of the ancient words at all. There are indeed hints. Unfortunately, we can't understand it. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands. It seemed that they could only feel it for themselves. Just as the two of them were moving forward slowly, the discussion of the cultivators behind them entered their ears. Chapter 5940. I also noticed that the further we go, the more difficult it is. What's going on? Could it be that this is a test? Do we need to go to the front? Everyone guessed. The cultivators who were originally at the edge also began to walk forward after hearing this. Although they didn't know the purpose of the pool, since there was resistance, it was obvious that the further they went, the better it was. However, after hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen in confusion. "Beichen, do you feel resistance?" "I don't feel anything different." "Me too." Bailey Hongzhuang felt strange. Everyone doesn't seem to be lying. This is interesting. Not long after, Di Xiaofeng also walked to the two inside. "The further you go, the greater the pressure. I see that the two of you look very relaxed." Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other and didn't say that they didn't feel any pressure. "It's okay." Di Beichen smiled faintly. "I feel that if we go to the other side of the pool, there might be different gains. Also, did you guys notice that the further we go, the denser the origin energy?" Di Xiaofeng's eyes were filled with excitement. "If we can reach the front, the cultivation speed there will be faster than here." Indeed, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. As they moved forward, the feeling of the origin energy gradually becoming denser was very obvious. "Did you guys notice that there are actually lines at the bottom of the pool?" Di Beichen looked at the bottom of the pool. The water was very clear, and he could easily see the bottom of the pool. He vaguely noticed that there were thin lines at the bottom of the pool. Although they weren't very obvious, he could still notice them if he looked closely. Di Xiaofeng was startled for a moment before looking at the bottom of the pool. His eyes were filled with surprise. Indeed, these lines aren't very obvious and almost merged into the pool. If you don't pay attention, you would think that they are ripples in the pool. What is the use of these thin threads? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and subconsciously looked at the words on the wall of the pool. If it wasn't for the fact that they didn't recognize them, they wouldn't have to keep guessing like this. "I don't know." Di Beichen said in a low voice. Let's keep moving forward. We'll find out eventually. Lin Taxing and the others also noticed this from the conversation between the three of them. They felt that the pool was not only used for cultivation, but also had other uses. Almost everyone was moving forward with all their might, wanting to get ahead of the others and find out what was going on. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen also felt the resistance in the water after moving forward for a while. However, this resistance was not difficult for them, and they could still move forward steadily. Compared to how easy it was for the two of them, some of the cultivators behind them were already showing signs of strain. Every step forward seemed to be extremely difficult for them. The resistance is too great. It's so difficult to move forward. Really? I think it's okay. It doesn't seem to be as strenuous as you. Are you serious? You've already walked so much farther than me. Everyone was talking, and in the process, they found that everyone's situation was different. Chapter 5941. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look behind her. Di Xiaofeng, Lin Taxing, and the others were still moving forward steadily, while some cultivators from the family clans had already widened the gap. From the unconcealed expressions on their faces, it could be seen that they actually wanted to catch up with everyone, but the increasingly strenuous feeling made them feel very helpless. Although we don't know what this is, let's keep moving forward and see how far we can go. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen with a smile. Her eyes curved slightly with the smile on her face, as bright as the crescent moon, bright and dazzling. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was obviously interested, Di Beichen's lips also curled into a smile, and he smiled dotingly. Okay. The two no longer hesitated and walked forward with all their strength. Bai Li Yanche and Ling were also unwilling to fall behind. They followed closely behind Di Beichen and moved forward. After seeing how interesting the situation was, Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Xiao Xuanzi also walked into the pool after seeing how interesting the situation was. Of course, with Xiao He and Xiao Bai's usual appearance, they would undoubtedly be submerged under the pool if they entered. The two little fellows immediately changed their figures and became the same size as Xiao Xuanzi. Only then did they continue to stride forward. Everyone who was originally moving forward with difficulty was shocked when they saw the sudden change of Xiao He and Xiao Bai. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's two contract beasts could be said to be very famous, but they never knew that these two guys could change their figures at will. This was too strange, wasn't it? Everyone was stunned. Although contract beasts were not the same species as humans, they would grow stronger with age, and their bodies would also grow bigger. However, contract beasts that could change their sizes at will were really rare. These two people are already very abnormal on normal days, and now even their contract beasts are so abnormal. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. The more they understood, the more they realized how big the gap was, which made them feel extremely helpless. Nangong Yuqing looked at Di Beichen with a complicated expression. When they first met, he didn't put Di Beichen in his eyes at all. Now Di Beichen had become an existence that everyone had to face. This guy's strength had increased terrifyingly. The Di family's heavenly physique truly lives up to its reputation. Chu Yingming sighed with emotion. The Di family had stood in the upper realm for so many years, so everyone had some understanding of the heavenly physique. Even if a cultivator with the heavenly physique appeared in the Di family would appear every time, this cultivator was an extremely powerful existence. If not for this, the Jun family would not have deliberately kidnapped Di Beichen when he was still in his swaddling clothes. She just didn't expect that one day, Di Beichen would actually come back. Following Chu Yingming's words, everyone nodded. The heavenly physique was publicly known to be extremely suitable for cultivation. Once a cultivator had the heavenly physique, their cultivation speed would far surpass ordinary cultivators. Thinking about the changes Di Beichen had undergone in the past few years, Everyone understood. Now he was the only heavenly moon cultivator among them. Perhaps in the future, he would leave them far behind. A portion of the cultivators who had reached the middle of the pool were unable to go any further. It was as if there was a terrifying resistance preventing them from moving forward. It was just a single step, but they couldn't cross it. I can't go any further. Why is that? Chapter 59:42. When the cultivators who were moving forward noticed that some of the cultivators were forced to stop, they found it very interesting. A sense of superiority arose in their hearts for no reason. At least, although they were under a lot of pressure, they could still move forward. Bailey Hongzhuang felt more and more resistance, and her steps became extremely slow. This feeling reminded her of the time when she climbed the stairway to heaven. It was the same feeling. Every step forward was extremely difficult, but in the end, there would be unimaginable gains. She couldn't help but think of her master, father, and others. It had been a while since she came out to train. She wondered if everyone was doing well. With how hard the seniors worked, they must have been in closed-door cultivation. Her father and master were rare geniuses. If they didn't encounter so many things back then, they would have already come to the upper realm and even gained a foothold. Although it was a bit late now, it was a good thing that cultivators had a long lifespan, and they still had a lot of time. A warm smile bloomed on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips. When she thought of her family, her expression was always gentle. When she first transmigrated, she was alone, but now, she looked at the familiar faces beside her. Everything was so beautiful. Compared to this happiness, the hardships and tribulations of training and fighting were nothing. I can't move forward anymore. Di Xiaofeng looked at where he was standing. Although he didn't want to admit it, the huge resistance clearly told him that it was impossible to move forward. In the process of moving forward, he clearly found a problem. That was that the horizontal lines clearly had a distinguishing effect. Although the pressure within the horizontal lines increased, it was still within a range that could be crossed. However, every time he crossed a horizontal line, the resistance would greatly increase. This feeling, it was like these horizontal lines were specially used to distinguish the difference. Every time he crossed a horizontal line, he would be separated by a level. When this thought appeared, he increasingly felt that all of this was real. Xiaofeng, you've already walked quite far. I can't move anymore. Lin Qianqian looked helplessly at Di Xiaofeng. At least Di Xiaofeng's position was a bit ahead of her. She stopped at this position and couldn't move forward anymore. Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng noticed Lin Qianqian behind him. Taking a closer look, he found that Lin Qianqian was one space behind him. I can't move either. Lin Taxing frowned. Although there was still a bit of unwillingness in his eyes, he had to admit that he really couldn't move forward. Di Xiaofeng looked again and found that Lin Taxing was in the same space as him, but slightly behind him. After Di Xiaofeng and the others couldn't move forward, most of the other cultivators stopped in the area behind Di Xiaofeng. Nangong Yuqing and Chu Yingming were in the same place. Jiang Wenyan, Morong Jing, Shengguan Yingying, and Wen Ziren were in the same place. Although they were slightly of course, they were all in the same area. Chapter 59:43. Xiao Soa moved forward with difficulty. Her charming face showed some difficulty. After walking to a position not far away from Di Xiaofeng and others, it was very difficult to continue moving forward. Di Xiaofeng noticed that Chen Feng walked past him and continued to move forward. He also sighed in his heart. In fact, Chen Feng's cultivation talent had always been known by everyone. This eldest senior brother of the Great Devil sect had always been in existence that no one was willing to offend. And from his current performance, it was clear that he was indeed stronger than everyone else. Although the cultivators of the Great Devil sect had already stopped, when they saw that their eldest senior brother was still moving forward, they suddenly felt honored. On weekdays, when they went out for experience, ordinary cultivators would be polite to them. This was all thanks to their senior brother. In the end, Chen Feng stopped at a position 1 square away from Di Xiaofeng. Xiao Zhou originally felt very depressed because she couldn't walk anymore. But when she saw that everyone had stopped, she became happy. Even if she didn't know what it meant to take a few more steps, it was great to be able to surpass others. Lin Yi couldn't help but feel depressed when she saw that Xiao Zhou had surpassed most of them and stopped slightly behind Chen Feng. This annoying guy can actually reach this position. It's unbelievable. Lin Qianqian patted Lin Yi's hand and lowered her voice. She has always been regarded as the light saint by the Light Sacred Assembly. Naturally, she has a certain advantage. Anyway, it's not fun to watch. Lin Yi pouted. She didn't like Xiao Zhou from the past. Now after so many things happened, she didn't like her even more. Qing Devil couldn't help but spit after finding that he had fallen behind Xiao Zhou. What a waste. He can't even compare to a woman. If it was his own body, all of this would not be a problem. However, he was occupying Jun Lingxuan's body now. Naturally, everything was calculated according to this body. Now the difference between them was obvious. He suddenly felt that he should find a chance to change his body. This guy might be good in other people's eyes, but it was obviously not good enough in his eyes. As all the cultivators stopped in their tracks, they turned their attention to Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. With a glance, they discovered that Bai Lianche was traveling with the two of them. At this moment, Di Beichen, Bailey Hongzhuang, and Bai Lianche were moving forward together. Unknowingly, they had left the rest of the group behind. Linga was also following behind the three of them. However, she stopped when she was 1 space ahead of Chen Feng, and 1 space behind Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Judging from his expression, it was obvious that he was unable to move forward. Hongzhuang and the others are really abnormal. They can actually walk so far ahead of us. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but sigh. Although she had long known that the gap between them was not small, she still couldn't help but sigh when the gap was completely revealed. Indeed, this is expected. Di Xiaofeng spread his hands, but his eyes couldn't stop smiling. At first, his family was worried that Beichen and Lin Yi would be pressured. Now it seemed that everything was simply overthinking. Chapter 5944. The resistance is getting stronger. Bailey Hongzhuang felt the resistance brought by the water in the pool, and a dividing line appeared in front of her eyes. She had used all her strength, but the resistance was too amazing. She knew that she couldn't go much further. Luckily, she wasn't far from the other side of the pool. There were only 2 spaces left. As long as she could cross this space, she would only be 1 space away from the other side. Linger looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 who were still moving forward. Her gaze changed slightly before landing on Bai Lianche. The Beast King was indeed a different existence. Even the dragon race couldn't compare to it. Di Xiaofeng and the others found that they couldn't move forward no matter what, so they simply sat in the pool. Cultivating here was much faster than cultivating at the edge of the pool. Although they were envious of the cultivation environment in front of them, they could only watch. Just then, the 9-tailed inferno fox who had been silent suddenly spoke. "The man walking in front is your brother?" Hearing the voice in his mind, Di Xiaofeng was startled. After understanding that the 9-tailed inferno fox took the initiative to communicate with him, he was in disbelief. Although the 9-tailed inferno fox was in his body, when he tried to communicate with it, the 9-tailed inferno fox had always been lazy and didn't want to talk to him. Now that it took the initiative to speak, how could he not be surprised? "I'm asking you a question," the 9-tailed inferno fox said. Di Xiaofeng nodded. "The man on the left is my brother, the one on the right isn't." "Nonsense, the one on the right is the Beast King." However, even the Beast King became a contract beast. This woman is also very amazing. Seeing that the nine-tailed Inferno Fox saw through the Beast King's identity, Di Xiaofeng wasn't surprised. Beasts had their own methods that they couldn't understand. Furthermore, the nine-tailed Inferno Fox was also a very powerful existence. It was natural for it to recognize the Beast King. Your brother's cultivation talent is much stronger than yours. He's actually on par with the Beast King. He's really an amazing genius. The nine-tailed Inferno Fox's cold voice was somewhat emotional. If Di Xiaofeng could see the nine-tailed Inferno Fox's current appearance, he would find that its eyes were unprecedentedly bright. That feeling was like a person who had been starving for a long time suddenly seeing a delicious cake. That kind of joy and anticipation couldn't be expressed with words. Di Xiaofeng smiled and nodded. My second brother is a cultivation genius. He has the destiny body. The destiny body is not bad. But even the destiny body can't reach such a cultivation. He should have gained quite a bit in the Darkness Palace. With his cultivation talent, he will definitely be an existence that will shock the world in the future. I've been waiting for so many years. And finally, most importantly, this guy had awakened the darkness attribute. Vaguely, it even felt that all of this was destined by the heavens. How did you see that Beichen's talent is very strong? Di Xiaofeng felt a bit strange after he reacted. He had watched Beichen cultivate all the way. With that terrifying speed of improvement, he could see that Beichen's cultivation talent was extraordinary. Chapter 5945. Looking at Di Xiaofeng's puzzled expression, the nine-tailed Inferno Fox rolled her eyes. You guys are now in the talent testing pool. Do you think I can't see your cultivation talent? As soon as she said that, Di Xiaofeng was slightly stunned. Talent testing pool? That's right. This pool is used to test talent. The more a cultivator advances, the purer his cultivation talent is. Look carefully. According to the position of each cultivator and their cultivation talent, isn't it very consistent? The nine-tailed Inferno Fox seemed to be in a good mood at the moment. Hence, she was willing to say more to Di Xiaofeng. Di Xiaofeng subconsciously looked at everyone. Previously, he felt that the position of everyone had a meaning. At this moment he understood everything. Chen Feng's cultivation talent was stronger than theirs. Hence, he always occupied the first place. The further they went, the fewer cultivators there were. Similarly, the cultivators at the back did not exist. In fact, the cultivators who came here were not weak existences in their families. Their cultivation talent would naturally not be too bad. The positions of the most outstanding cultivators in each family were not too different. Hence, their cultivation had always been on par with each other all these years. So it's like this. After Di Xiaofeng understood everything, when he looked at Di Beichen's group again, his gaze was even more complicated. If the distance in the pool was divided into 10 levels, then most of them stayed between the 5th and 7th level. However, Ling Er was at the 8th level. Now Bailey Hongzhuang's group was about to reach the 9th level. Such cultivation talent was indeed very abnormal. What a blockhead. This kind of thing can be understood just by thinking about it. The nine-tailed Inferno Fox shook her head. However, although you are a bit stupid, your luck is not bad. To be able to come to the Radiant Temple and enter the talent testing pool here is a kind of luck in itself. This talent testing pool is only used to test a cultivator's talent. However, the cultivation speed here is not bad. Di Xiaofeng slowly said. This time, he had really gained a lot from coming to this ancient battlefield. If you think that this place can only test talent, then you are wrong. The nine-tailed Inferno Fox chuckled. Di Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows. Could it be that it has other uses? The innate talent testing pool is a place that many cultivators dream of. Once you come here, you can test your innate talent level. Other than the fact that the water here was rich in energy, there was nothing special about it. Staying in the pool, and letting the water wash over your body will unknowingly increase your cultivation talent. If it weren't for the fact that I'm only a soul now and don't have a physical body, I wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. You're saying that this pool of water can improve one's cultivation talent. Di Xiaofeng was stunned. As far as he knew, cultivation talent was innate. Although it could be improved through hard work, it was impossible to improve one's innate talent. Even elixirs wouldn't be able to do so. Now, the nine-tailed inferno fox actually told him that staying in this pool of water could increase his cultivation talent. This was simply too precious. He didn't think that the nine-tailed inferno fox would lie to him. As long as their cultivation talent increased, it meant that their cultivation speed would be even faster in the future. Chapter 5946. Looking at Di Xiaofeng's stunned look, the nine-tailed inferno fox was amused. So now do you understand why I said this is an opportunity that can only be encountered by chance? Do I just have to sit in this pool? Di Xiaofeng couldn't hide his excitement. He just wanted to seize this opportunity to improve his talent. You can cultivate in this pool. Your talent will be improved, and your cultivation will also improve quickly. The nine-tailed inferno fox's calm voice revealed a bit of vicissitudes, as if it was thinking of its past self. Such an opportunity was a dream come true for both the human race and the beast race. Back then, it was the same as the Qing devil, looking forward to entering the Light Palace one day, but it didn't expect to come here after so many years. The Qing devil was now occupying someone else's body. He could still experience this feeling, but it could only watch. I understand, Di Xiaofeng smiled. But then he thought of how the nine-tailed inferno fox mentioned Di Baichen, and couldn't help but ask, by the way, why are you suddenly so concerned about my brother's situation? I have a friend who is a dark attribute monster. After we get out of here, I want your brother to accompany me to see him. Di Xiaofeng frowned slightly, feeling a little suspicious. He didn't know what was going on. After the incident of Jun Lingxuan being possessed, he was a little more wary of such a strong existence. Beichen's cultivation talent was so strong that he must be the best target for many experts to possess. Even if the other party was a beast race, he couldn't be sure that such a thing wouldn't happen. After seeing Di Xiaofeng fall into silence, the nine-tailed inferno fox immediately said, "Don't worry, I won't harm your brother. What's more, demonic beasts won't possess humans." Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng was relieved. Possession was really too terrifying. If he hadn't seen Jun Lingxuan's situation with his own eyes, he wouldn't have come into contact with all this before. Then I'll talk to Baichen later. He will go. The nine-tailed inferno fox was very certain. After saying that, it didn't say anything else. When Bailey Hongzhuang crossed the line, she felt relieved. At least she had crossed the line. However, after crossing this line, she couldn't go any further after taking 2 steps. Looking at the 2 men beside her, she couldn't help but smile. Then, she spread her hands and said helplessly, "The 2 of you are stronger than me." She could no longer move forward, but the 2 men beside her did not stop like her. Instead, they took another step forward. However, after the 2 of them took another step, they could no longer move forward. The resistance in front of them was too terrifying, and they were unable to take another step forward. When Di Xiaofeng saw that Beichen's cultivation talent was higher than Hong Zhuang's, he was a bit shocked. However, after thinking about it, Baichen had the heavenly fate physique, while Hong Zhuang only had an ordinary physique. To be able to reach such a cultivation talent was already very shocking. As for Bai Li Yin Che, as a beast king, its talent was not something ordinary monsters could compare to. It was an existence that wanted to become the beast king. Chapter 5947. Mo Yunjue was the last person to set off, because he was about to break through when the others were moving forward. After he broke through, he noticed that everyone was already moving towards the pool. Bailey Hongzhuang had already noticed Mo Yunjue's previous situation. She knew that under such circumstances, no one would find trouble with Yunju, so she was very relieved. After stopping, Shi Beichen and Yin Che sat in the pool like everyone else. The yuan qi here was much denser than before, so cultivating here would be much faster. After noticing that Yunju had broken through, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, "Yunju, try walking over here. The vitality here is denser." Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Mo Yunjue's eyes flashed with gentleness. Okay. Di Xiaofeng and the others also looked over. They had a good impression of Mo Yunjue. Although he rarely spoke, it had to be said that his cold and handsome appearance made him an existence that was hard to ignore. Moreover, according to their understanding, Yunju's cultivation talent was also very strong. The women from the Lin and Di family cultivators couldn't help but look at Mo Yunjue. During this period of time, they couldn't help but yearn for this dignified man with a face that said no strangers should come near. Even if Mo Yunjue didn't have any background in the upper realm, they didn't think it was a problem at all. This was because Mo Yunjue himself was an existence with great potential. Di Beichen and the others were outstanding, but they were all taken. There was no possibility of them being together. However, Mo Yunjue had always been alone. Mo Yunjue walked forward slowly. Without a doubt, he easily passed by the place where the ordinary cultivators stopped. During the process of walking, he felt that the pool was indeed very interesting. This kind of feeling was like a kind of selection. Noticing where everyone stopped, he felt that this was the purpose of the pool. Not long after, Mo Yunjue arrived at where Di Xiaofeng was. Seeing this scene, Nangong Yuqing and the others began to take this man seriously. Because Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were always in the limelight, they didn't pay much attention to the people around them. Before they discovered that Ling Er and Bai Li Yin Che were very terrifying existences. Now they discovered that Mo Yunjue was also very amazing. At the very least, Mo Yunjue was on the same level as them. Just when everyone thought that everything was over, they discovered that Mo Yunjue didn't stop and continued to walk forward. Seeing this, everyone was stunned. Chu Yingming and the others looked at each other in dismay. They immediately felt that they had lost all face. A group of cultivators from the lower realm were all so amazing. Although they didn't know what this difference in position meant, the fact that Di Xiaofeng could do what they couldn't was already a slap in their faces. Mo Yunjue walked forward slowly. He was calm and indifferent, not caring about what others thought. He only wanted to see what position he could reach. Not long after, Mo Yunjue arrived at Chunfeng's position. Noticing this, everyone sank into silence. As for the young women, their eyes shone brightly. He was truly outstanding like this. Chapter 5948. After seeing Mo Yunjue's situation, a trace of astonishment flashed through Chunfeng's eyes. However, he quickly calmed down. In fact, he had always known about Mo Yunjue's cultivation talent. That was because they were able to reach the upper realm through their own efforts. This in itself was already proof of their strength. Apart from that, he also noticed something else. Di Beichen was the young master of the Di family, while Bailey Hongzhuang was the holy maiden of light. Both of them undoubtedly had abundant cultivation resources. However, Mo Yunjue did not have any background. Even if the Di family treated him extremely well, the treatment he received was still incomparable to Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. Under such circumstances, he was able to maintain such a speed of improvement. It could be seen that his talent was very strong. If Mo Yunjue also joined a sect, he would definitely be nurtured as a top disciple. His achievements might be even more impressive. Among the cultivators in the lower realm, there were also quite a number of top geniuses. Mo Yunjue looked at Chun Feng, who was also paying attention to him. He nodded slightly before once again taking a step forward. This step, even though it was somewhat difficult for him to take, he still succeeded. Seeing this scene, Chunfeng's eyes narrowed. The shock in his heart became even stronger. He did not know what crossing this pool meant. However, at least it proved that in a certain aspect, Mo Yunjue was stronger than him. Everyone was already stunned. They silently looked at the tall and indifferent black figure. And they didn't know exactly how far he would go. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three had already sat down. After noticing that Mo Yunjue was slowly approaching them, a joyful smile appeared on their faces. At the same time, Di Xiaofeng's voice also entered Di Beichen's ears. Beichen, the nine-tailed inferno fox told me that this pool is used to test one's talent. The further ahead a cultivator is, the higher their talent is. Apart from that, this pool also has an effect on improving our physiques. As long as we stay in this pool for a period of time, our physiques will also change, and our talents will also increase. Hearing this, Di Beichen's deep eyes flashed with a strange light, but his expression was rather calm. I see. In fact, after connecting all the dots, he already had this conjecture in his mind. Now he was certain of it. Beichen, what are you thinking about? Noticing the subtle change in Di Beichen's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately asked. My brother told me something just now. Di Beichen told Bailey Hongzhuang about the situation with a faint smile, and the latter immediately showed a look of understanding. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang came to a realization. It's no wonder that we can reach such a high position. Our talent has already improved when we were in the darkness shrine previously. Di Beichen nodded slightly. If we didn't go to the darkness shrine, we wouldn't be able to reach our current position. This way, we can clearly see everyone's talent. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. After taking a closer look, she realized that cultivation was indeed related to everyone's talent for cultivation. As long as they were the core cultivators of the major forces, their talents were all quite outstanding. After all, to be able to become a top force in the upper realm, the cultivation resources they had would not be too far off. Similarly, this was also the reason why the young masters and senior brothers of the major forces had similar strengths. Chapter 5949. Bai Li Yanche smiled faintly. Every generation of Beast Kings has top-notch talent in cultivation. That's why there's only one Beast King. You have to pay the price for what you get. God is always fair. Beast Kings have unique cultivation conditions and long lifespans, but they're destined to be lonely. Although it's unbelievable for a Beast King to become a contract beast in the eyes of others, to him, it's not a problem at all. On the contrary, he enjoys all of this and feels that God is treating him well. He's never been lonely when he's by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Now he doesn't feel lonely at all. That's because he has someone he cares about the most. Mo Yunjue slowly walked forward until he reached the same position as Ling before stopping. Seeing that Mo Yunjue finally stopped moving forward, many cultivators heaved a sigh of relief. This situation has already given them a lot of shock. If Mo Yunjue can also reach the same position as Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, they really feel that they probably won't be able to become enemies with the Di family in the future. With so many outstanding cultivators, they'll be an extremely terrifying existence in the future. When Mo Yunjue saw that he couldn't continue moving forward, a complicated look flashed across his eyes that were as deep as a black hole. He then sat down on the spot. Is there such a gap between him and Di Beichen? Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest sighed in their hearts at Mo Yunjue's talent. If they hadn't gone to the darkness shrine, they probably wouldn't have reached a better position than Yunju. Yunjue, the pool water here has the effect of increasing one's cultivation talent. You must grasp this opportunity well. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. In fact, Ling and Mo Yunjue were only one space away from them. It wasn't far at all, and it was very convenient for them to talk. Hearing this, Mo Yunjue's cold face brightened up a little. From his slightly dilated eyes, it could be seen that he was very surprised by this news. In that case, the situation here is used to test one's cultivation talent? That's right. Di Beichen nodded. This is the talent testing pool. As soon as he said that, many of the cultivators present heard him, and their expressions changed again and again. Xiao Suo was already very dissatisfied with the distance between her and Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that she knew that this situation represented the difference in talent, her expression became even uglier. She had always been unconvinced that the Holy Light Assembly believed that Bailey Hongzhuang was stronger than her, but she felt that there was no evidence at all. Now this test actually said that Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation talent was so much stronger than hers? How was this possible? Even if she knew that there was a gap between them, wasn't it too much of a slap in the face? Fortunately, no one noticed Xiao Suo at this time, because almost everyone was immersed in depression and helplessness. Nangong Yuqing looked at the gap between himself and Di Beichen, and suddenly understood how this guy was able to surpass him in cultivation in such a short time. With such a gap in talent, it was only a matter of time before he caught up. If it was just a gap in cultivation, he wouldn't be so desperate because as long as he worked hard, he might be able to catch up. However, with such a gap in talent, how could he catch up? Chapter 5950. It was not only Nangong Yuqing who was in despair. Chu Yingming and others were also speechless after realizing such a gap. The physique of destiny is really powerful. I didn't feel it before when I heard about it. Now I understand it. With such a cultivation talent, how can he not become a powerhouse? Everyone with an unbalanced mentality could only blame it on Di Beichen's physique. After all, the other party was born with a cultivation physique. How could ordinary people have such good luck? Our family's physique of destiny is already amazing. All the cultivators of the Di family had a smug look on their faces. Their young master was in the limelight. How could they not be happy about it? Proud. Following such a young master, their future will be bright. Just this point alone was enough to crush the young lords, or eldest senior brothers of other forces. After Lin Yi saw that a group of cultivators attributed this reason to her second cousin's physique, she couldn't help but say, "It's true that second cousin has the physique of destiny, but my second cousin-in-law is not, and neither is Yen Che." As Lin Yi's words fell, everyone's expression stiffened. Originally, they found a fig leaf to cover their shame, and they could still get out of the situation. Now Lin Yi's words undoubtedly took away everyone's fig leaf directly, making them unable to find a way out of this embarrassing situation. For a while, everyone looked at each other and fell into silence. The initial joy of entering the pool had completely dissipated after hearing the news. All that was left was depression, a kind of deep depression that came from being struck by a blow. Qing Devil looked at everyone present. His mood was also very depressed. Mo Yunjua's cultivation talent itself was not bad. In addition, he could still improve after coming to the talent testing pool. However, after seeing the talents of Di Beichen and others, this body was really not good enough. He was helpless. Why wasn't the person who touched the ring Di Beichen? If it was Di Beichen or by Li Yen Che, then it could be imagined that under his control, they would become more powerful cultivators in the future than before. However, it was obviously impossible now. After Mo Yunjua knew that this was the talent testing pool, a hint of sadness flashed quietly in his eyes. Soon, he regained his calmness again. His always indifferent and expressionless face did not change, as if he never cared about it. After everyone accepted this fact helplessly, they no longer delayed, and began to cultivate. Since their talents were no longer comparable, they still had to compete with others. The entire hall fell into silence again. Everyone was cultivating peacefully in the talent testing pool. The rich spirit power continued to pour into the cultivators' bodies, and the clear pool water also washed everyone's body. In such an environment, everyone felt unprecedentedly comfortable. Similarly, their cultivation base also made rapid progress. As the time spent cultivating gradually increased, one cultivator after another broke through one after another. In a short period of time, many cultivators had a breakthrough. In this case, in a short time, Many cultivators had a breakthrough. In such a case in a short time. Normally, it would be extremely difficult to break through. But here, there was a large number of breakthroughs. After casting aside their previous gloominess, everyone was once again in a state of joy. Chapter 59-51. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang had become their family head, they felt that their family had become more and more fortunate. Even though the family head rarely returned to the family, and it was the old family head who took care of all the family matters, even if it was just a symbol, it was enough. Now they were already a very glorious existence among the ordinary aristocratic families. As long as they continued, it would not be long before their family's power would increase again, and they would leap from a small family to a mid-sized family. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Bailey Hongzhuang could clearly feel the changes in her body. Her body's affinity with elemental energy had increased once again, and her cultivation speed had also increased. Logically speaking, based on her current cultivation level, she would need to spend a lot of time to raise her cultivation level. However, she did not feel that way at all. Her breakthrough speed was still the same as before, and there was no change. This change made her very happy, since this innate talent testing pool had the effect of raising one's innate talent. She could try to see if there were any changes. When this thought surfaced, Bailey Hongzhuang stood up and slowly took a step forward. This step still had a lot of resistance, but she realized that it was different from before, when she could not move at all. Even though this step was extremely difficult, she still managed to take it. A dazzling smile appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's exquisite face. Even though it was only a small step, its significance was extraordinary. Just as everyone was immersed in their cultivation, Bailey Hongzhuang's action was undoubtedly very eye-catching. After noticing her change, everyone's eyes flashed with interest. They could also try to see if there were any changes in their innate talents. After this attempt, everyone realized that their innate talents had indeed increased. Even though it was more or less, there was still a certain amount of improvement. Everyone's face lit up with joy. An increase in one's innate talent was usually almost impossible, but now, everyone had really done it. Even if it was only a small step, it meant that everyone's cultivation speed would increase even faster in the future. In their eyes, the ancient battlefield was like a paradise. Just the rewards here were enough to match up to the many places they had been to in the past. This was because this kind of increase was the most practical. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't stop there. Instead, she went forward again and tried again. This time, she only took a small step and couldn't go any further. Di Beichen and the others also tried. Everyone moved forward a little, but in the process, they also noticed that Mo Yunjue seemed to have moved a little wider. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Mo Yunjue, who was getting closer to her. She couldn't help but have a thought in her mind. Could Yunju also have some extraordinary special constitution? If it were any other ordinary person, they would probably not be able to achieve such a formidable cultivation talent. One had to know that Linger was a member of the dragon race. The cultivation talent of the dragon clan had always been praised by others. The fact that Mo Yunjue could reach this level was already very surprising. The cultivation continued, but from the initial comfort, there was now a trace of pain. Gradually, everyone frowned as they endured the discomfort and pain coming from their bodies. Chapter 59-52. Di Beichen seemed to have guessed Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts and quietly held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. Feeling the warmth of Di Beichen's palm, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly opened her eyes and turned her head to look at the deep pool of tenderness. The corners of her lips curled up slightly, and her smile was sweet. No one spoke, but they all understood each other's thoughts. The pain in the light palace was not as intense as the pain in the darkness palace, and was simply unbearable. However, the duration was much longer than in the darkness palace. Everyone's brows were tightly knitted together as they endured the pain, without making a sound. Although the feeling was very unbearable, it was worth it to think about the results. The days of cultivation flew by, and everyone could not even remember how long they had been here. The light palace was the same every day. It was bright and spacious, and one could not feel the passage of time. They could only feel their own progress. When Bailey Hongzhuang took another 2 steps forward, she finally succeeded in reaching the last square. In a split second, she felt an incomparably rich yuan qi, as if it was about to envelop her entire body. The demon summoning scripture quickly circulated and frantically absorbed the yuan qi around her. In this period of time, she had also successfully broken through to the heavenly moon stage. Di Beichen and by Li Yanqi naturally also reached the last square. Feeling the difference here, the two of them were somewhat surprised. It was only a change of 1 square, but the difference in yuan qi was too great. Ling Er and Mo Yunjua also walked to where Di Beichen and the other 2 were previously. Everyone carefully checked and found that almost everyone's talent had increased by 1 level. Immediately, everyone was even more envious of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2. It was also 1 square, but the difference in Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2's 1 square was much greater than the difference in their own 1 square. This meant that Di Beichen and the other 2 had already reached the peak of cultivation talent. They didn't know how many cultivators in the world could achieve such top-notch talent. But looking at these people who usually boasted of being geniuses, they knew that it was really rare. Such a scene made them feel that they were destined to look up to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others in the future. 7 days later, everyone was surprised to find that the talent testing pool had disappeared. The ground beneath his feet became incomparably smooth. Other than the area of the entire hall becoming slightly larger, it was as if nothing had happened. However, the increase in their strength clearly reminded them that everything was real. Everyone could not help but sigh with a trace of regret in their hearts. If such a good cultivation opportunity existed for a little longer, it would undoubtedly be extremely good. Unfortunately, all of this was probably over now. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the situation in the main hall, her mind thinking. She didn't know if there were any other mechanisms. This hall seems to be slightly smaller than the Darkness Shrine. Di Beichen looked around with a deep gaze. He had been in the Darkness Shrine for a long time, and he was very clear about the boundaries of the Darkness Shrine. Logically speaking, the Brilliant Shrine shouldn't be weaker than the Darkness Shrine in this aspect. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. This meant that there might be something that they had not discovered yet. At the same time, Qing Devil had already begun to search around the hall. Chapter 59-53. All the cultivators took action immediately, hoping to find other legacies that might exist in the Brilliance Shrine. No matter what it was, it would definitely be of great help to them. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others didn't stay idle either, and instead continued to search around. This kind of opportunity was very precious to everyone. However, after everyone groped around the walls, they didn't find anything special, let alone a mechanism. They couldn't even feel anything different from the walls. They searched the Brilliance Shrine for 2 whole days in disbelief, but they still found nothing. There's probably nothing else, Shangguan Yingying said as she looked around. Shangguan Yingying looked around. In her opinion, the fact that the talent testing pool had improved everyone's cultivation talent was already a very impressive thing. She was now full of admiration and gratitude for the Brilliance Shrine. Usually, she would have to go all out and even risk her life to get such an opportunity. However, it was so simple now. It felt like a high and mighty God was bestowing gifts to his people. What seemed amazing to them might be insignificant to the Brilliance Shrine. Indeed, when Xiren nodded, "It's enough for us to have such a harvest." No one would be dissatisfied with such a harvest. In fact, everyone had been in a blissful state of rapid breakthroughs for a while. At least, coming to the Brilliance Shrine had helped them save more time on the road of cultivation, which also meant that they could go further in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. She and Beichen both felt that there might be something in the Brilliance Shrine that they hadn't discovered. However, they hadn't found anything even after searching everywhere. In that case, could it be that they had made a wrong judgment? Since light and darkness had always been opposing existences, the situation inside was likely to be different. They were just guessing based on the situation in the darkness shrine. No one knew if it was accurate or not. Why don't we continue searching? Anyway, the door isn't closed. There were still many cultivators who were unwilling to give up. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, they wouldn't give up. The Malachian fiend chose to give up after spending 2 days on it. He returned to his original seat and continued to copy the book. The sudden appearance of the talent testing pool caused him to be unable to complete his transcription. Since the other inheritances might be gone, he should at least copy everything here before the brilliant shrine closed. Di Baichen looked at the back of Qing Devil with a complicated expression. Since they had just entered the Divine Hall of Light, they had no time to deal with the Qing Devil. If the inheritance of the Divine Hall of Light had ended, they would have to deal with Qing Devil first. If Qing Devil was allowed to return to the Jun family as Jun Lingxuan, there would be a lot of trouble in the future. Although Azure Fiend was at peace with them now, it was only because he knew that he was no match for them. As long as Azure Fiend had a certain amount of power, he would definitely think of ways to deal with them. This person was not a magnanimous person. The only reason he had told them these things was because they had forced him to. Chapter 59-54. Qing Devil seemed to have noticed Di Baichen's gaze. He slowly turned his head, and a glimmer of light flashed across his dark eyes. How could he not know that Di Baichen's desire to kill him had never dissipated? From the beginning, they were destined to be opponents. In fact, he had always regretted not killing Di Baichen before, and missed the best opportunity. Now he couldn't even kill Di Baichen. Not to mention that the nine-tailed Inferno Fox was already very troublesome. He couldn't deal with Di Baichen's current strength. Once Di Baichen made up his mind to kill him, it would be very difficult for him to escape. Looking at the contents on the wall, he didn't have much left. As long as he copied these contents, he wouldn't continue to stay here. Seizing a body would consume a lot of energy. After so many years of consumption, his soul force was not as good as it used to be. In addition, although he succeeded in seizing the body and fighting with Jun Lingxuan, his vitality was also greatly damaged. Although he looked fine on the surface, in reality, there were still some problems and hidden dangers. As long as he didn't encounter any danger, he would be able to recover slowly after a period of recuperation. Fortunately, everyone was still looking for other inheritances in the Light Palace, so he still had a chance. Bailey Hongzhuang looked around. She didn't find anything after 2 days. She felt that the possibility of finding another mechanism was too small. There were so many people present, and everyone tried their best to find it, but they couldn't find it. This meant that it probably didn't exist. While thinking, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly took out the Holy Girl Crystal. The Holy Girl Crystal was a sacred object of the Light Sacred Assembly, and it also belonged to the Light attribute. She didn't know if it would change in the Light Palace. With the appearance of the Holy Girl Crystal, a dazzling light flashed, and everyone's eyes fell on the Holy Girl Crystal. This was a sacred object of the Light Sacred Assembly. Except for the Holy Girl succession ceremony, no one had seen the Holy Girl Crystal at close range. Now that they were close enough to sense it, everyone couldn't help but be envious. This was indeed a top-notch treasure. Xiao Soa looked at the Saintess Crystal, her delicate face filled with jealousy. She used to come into contact with the Saintess Crystal often, and was very familiar with it. Originally, he thought that the Holy Maiden Crystal would definitely fall into her hands. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen in the end? Now that she saw Bailey Hongzhuang holding it, she naturally had mixed feelings. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at the Holy Maiden Crystal. She had always known that the Holy Maiden Crystal was filled with pure light energy, which was not much weaker than the energy in the Light Palace. However, after she took it out, she found that the Holy Maiden Crystal was a little different from before. The power of the light palace surged into the Holy Maiden crystal, making the already dazzling Holy Maiden crystal even more dazzling and enchanting. It was as dazzling as a gemstone, blinding everyone's eyes. The speed at which the Holy Maiden crystal absorbed the light energy was much faster than when everyone was cultivating. The power that was visible to the naked eye was constantly surging into it. The cultivators who were closer to it could clearly feel the terrifying suction force. It seems that the Holy Maiden crystal is really an incredible treasure. It actually has such a change here. Chapter 59-55. It is a treasure that has been passed down for generations in the Holy Assembly, so it is not strange for it to have such a change. Everyone thought about it carefully, and did not find it strange. The reason why the Holy Assembly could stand for so many years was because of the Holy Maiden crystal. They had made such great progress in the Light Temple. So maybe the Holy Maiden crystal would also undergo a transformation. Bailey Hongzhuang found that a strange power suddenly emerged from the Holy Maiden crystal, and under the influence of this power, she slowly let go of her hand. The Holy Maiden crystal gradually flew into the air, like the most dazzling pearl in the entire Light Temple, dazzling and enchanting. After this power flowed through the Holy Maiden crystal, a part of it flowed to her body, gradually passing through her body, giving her a very special feeling. Under the influence of this power, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly closed her eyes, operated the demon summoning scripture, and entered into a state of cultivation again. In her line of sight, the Holy Maiden crystal was floating in the air, and Bailey Hongzhuang was sitting under the Holy Maiden crystal. The rich and terrifying pure power continued to flow into the Holy Maiden crystal and Bailey Hongzhuang's body. As time gradually passed, the Holy Maiden crystal became brighter, and the aura it emitted became more and more sacred. Bailey Hongzhuang's body was surrounded by a bright light, and at a glance, it was as if her body was also shining like the Holy Maiden crystal. Her exquisite and incomparable face was like an exquisite sculpture, and every curve was perfect to the extreme. Her sparkling and translucent skin had a jade-like luster, and her ink-black hair was scattered behind her head like silk, contrasting with her ivory-white skin, making her even more attractive. It was a kind of soul-stirring beauty, like a holy maiden of the immortal world, with an ethereal and holy aura. Everyone stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, and could not help but hold their breaths. Facing such a stunning beauty, no one had the slightest covetousness in their hearts. On the contrary, they could not help but have a kind of devout worship in their hearts. She was like a goddess, an existence on a completely different level from them. Shangguan Yingying stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in a daze, and there were only 3 words in her mind. Too beautiful. She had always known that Hongzhuang was extremely beautiful, but at this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang was almost beautiful to the extreme, making people unable to believe that all this was real. Was there really such a perfect person in the world? She was as beautiful as a painting, and no one could bear to disturb her, for fear that she would disappear if they touched her. Di Beichun just stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, his handsome face carrying a bit of pride, but the depths of his eyes were heavy and complicated. Her red makeup was too beautiful. She was as beautiful as a fairy from the 9th heaven. However, even though she was surrounded by a holy aura, she didn't seem to belong to this mortal world. It was as if she had unknowingly become a little distant. The hands under his sleeves slowly closed. He had always known that Hongzhuang was not an ordinary person, and he would do his best to protect the person he wanted to protect. Mo Yunjue's eyes, which had always been calm, were now filled with amazement. He could still clearly remember the first time he saw Hongzhuang. She was being chased by a group of demonic beasts. At that time, she was a bit mischievous and a bit embarrassed, but she was still very beautiful. After several years, Hongzhuang had become even more beautiful. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.